One boy shared his only lunch with an old man lost in his own fading memories, but the very next morning, a black luxury car stopped outside his small home. What happened next would rewrite the meaning of kindness forever. The faint hum of a ceiling fan filled the cramped kitchen of the Matthews home. Morning sunlight filtered through the thin curtains, illuminating a stack of unpaid bills spread across the table like unwelcome guests. Martha Matthews sat silently, tracing her trembling fingers over the red letters, "Final Notice." Her heart felt heavy, her eyes tired. Life had been one long uphill climb since her husband passed 2 years ago, leaving her alone with 3 children, Dylan, Emma, and little Benji. "Ma," Dylan's voice came softly from the doorway. He was just 14, skinny but strong for his age, his eyes too old for such a young face. Martha forced a smile, trying to sound steady. "Morning, sweetheart." Breakfast's on the counter. 2 slices of toast and a cup of weak coffee, that was all she could manage. Dylan picked up a piece, chewing slowly. The silence between them spoke louder than words. He could see the exhaustion in his mother's eyes, the quiet despair she tried so hard to hide. "I'll stop by Roy's garage after school," he said, slinging his patched-up backpack over his shoulder. "Maybe he's got some extra work." Martha wanted to protest, to remind him he was still a child, but what choice did they have? "Take care of yourself," she whispered. "Don't push too hard." Outside, the morning air was thick and warm. Dylan's shoes, patched with duct tape, slapped against the pavement. Passing other kids in new sneakers and bright backpacks, he kept his eyes down. When he reached Forsyth Park, laughter filled the air, children chasing pigeons, parents sipping lattes. It felt like a different world. Then Dylan saw him, an elderly man sitting alone on a bench near the fountain. His clothes were rumpled, his white hair disheveled, and confusion clouded his pale blue eyes. Dylan hesitated, then stepped closer. "Sir? Are you okay?" The man blinked, lost and trembling. I don't know. I was going somewhere, but I can't remember where." Dylan's stomach growled. He remembered the peanut butter sandwich in his bag, his only lunch. But as he looked into the man's frightened eyes, he didn't think twice. He unwrapped the sandwich and handed it over. "Here, sir. You look like you need it more than I do." The man hesitated, then took it, tears glistening in his eyes. "Thank you, son. You're very kind." "My name's Dylan," he said softly. "What's yours?" After a long pause, the man whispered, "Walter. Walter Briggs." Moments later, a well-dressed man came running down the path. His voice shook with relief. "Dad! There you are!" Walter looked up, a flicker of recognition crossing his face. "Elliot?" Elliot Briggs knelt before his father, holding him close. "You scared me, Dad. I've been looking everywhere for you." Then Elliot turned to Dylan, and for a brief moment, his guarded, businesslike expression melted. "You helped him?" Dylan nodded shyly. "Yeah, sir." He just looked lost. Elliot reached into his pocket and handed Dylan a card. "If you ever need anything at all, call me." Dylan tucked it into his backpack, unaware that small, simple act of kindness had already begun to change his life. That night, Dylan went to bed hungry, but his heart felt full. What he didn't know was that his empty stomach had opened the door to a miracle waiting just around the corner. The next morning, Martha poured hot water into a cracked mug. She glanced at the business card on the table, Elliot Briggs, CEO, Briggs & Company, but quickly looked away. She wasn't one to beg for favors. "Morning, Ma," Dylan said, rubbing his eyes. She smiled faintly. "Morning, sweetheart. You heading out early?" "Yeah, Roy might have some work." He grabbed a dry piece of toast and slung his bag over his shoulder. Just as he reached the street, he froze. A sleek black luxury car, the kind you only saw in magazines, pulled up in front of their home. The door opened, and Elliot Briggs stepped out, dressed sharply but with warmth in his eyes. "Dylan," he called, smiling. "Mind if I speak with your mom?" Dylan's pulse quickened. "Is everything okay?" Elliot chuckled softly. Everything's more than okay. When they entered the house, Martha stood quickly, startled. Mrs. Matthews, Elliot said, extending a hand. Your son helped my father yesterday. I can't thank him enough. Martha smiled nervously. He's always been kind-hearted. I'm just glad he was there. Elliot looked around, peeling wallpaper, flickering bulb, a stack of bills on the counter. Then he said, Mrs. Matthews, I'd like to offer you a job at my company. Front desk work, answering calls, organizing schedules. Full-time. Benefits included. Martha blinked in shock. Sir, I appreciate that, but we don't take charity. This isn't charity, Elliot said softly. It's gratitude and opportunity. Dylan stepped closer. Mom, maybe we should think about it. Her eyes softened. She looked at her son, then back at Elliot. All right, she said quietly. I'll try. When Elliot Briggs drove away that morning, he didn't just leave behind a job offer, he left behind a spark. And in that tiny house on Maple Street, hope finally began to breathe again. Martha's first day at Briggs & Company was far from easy. The phones rang nonstop, the computer seemed to have a mind of its own, and she spilled coffee twice before lunch. But she didn't give up. Elliot watched from his office window, impressed by her persistence. She reminds me of you, Walter said softly, sitting by the window, his memory flickering in and out like a fading flame. Elliot smiled. She reminds me of who I used to be. Meanwhile, Dylan faced his own battles at school. Chase and his gang wouldn't stop mocking him, calling him charity boy and sneering about his mother's job. But Dylan held his head high. He had bigger things to focus on, like earning extra cash at the garage. Each night, as Martha came home exhausted but proud, Dylan saw something in her he hadn't seen in months' life. The house, once heavy with silence, now buzzed with cautious optimism. The lights were still off, the bills still unpaid, but laughter began to fill the rooms again. It started with a sandwich and a forgotten old man, but now, the Matthews family was remembering what it felt like to dream again. Yet what Elliot Briggs was about to reveal next would change their future forever. Weeks passed. Martha grew more confident at work, earning praise from Elliot's staff. Dylan continued helping at the garage and saving every dollar he could. Then one Friday evening, a letter arrived embossed with the Briggs & Company logo. Martha opened it with trembling hands. Inside was a handwritten note from Elliot. For your kindness, your courage, and the example you've set for my family and your own, I want to offer Dylan a full scholarship to the Briggs Foundation School of Engineering. Martha gasped. Dylan's eyes widened. For me? Elliot's car pulled up moments later. He stepped out, smiling as he saw their tears. Dylan, he said, placing a hand on the boy's shoulder, my father doesn't remember much these days. But every morning, he asks one thing, did you thank the boy who fed me? Dylan couldn't speak. His throat tightened. Elliot continued softly, that simple act of kindness reminded us both what truly matters. You didn't just help a man, you helped a family find their way back to each other. Tears streamed down Martha's face as she whispered, thank you. Elliot smiled. No, Mrs. Matthews. Thank him. Because sometimes, the smallest act of compassion can echo louder than a lifetime of wealth. The setting sun bathed the little house in golden light. Dylan looked up at the sky, the same sky under which he had once shared his only lunch, and smiled. He gave away his only sandwich and received a future. The world will never run out of miracles, as long as there are hearts like Dylan's willing to create them. If this story touched your heart, don't forget to share it, because kindness, once shared, multiplies. Red Heart.